Peace out.
You just shot a deer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now what do you do?
We actually find ourselves in this situation often. We travel all over the U.S. hunting deer. You can subscribe and actually see a lot of our hunts from the past on the channel here. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you right now how we get a deer out of the woods.
This doesn't really matter if you're hunting public or hunting private. It kind of all applies. You're going to have to figure out how to extract that buck, right?
That's right.
What's the first step?
So, you shot a deer. He starts to run off. The first thing you want to do is pay attention. You don't go to celebrating. You got a buddy in the tree sometimes. You got to listen, and you got to mark the last location of that buck.
That's right. Follow that deer. See where he's headed, right? You're probably going to need to decide at that point what your shot was like. You need to not black out, first of all, when you shoot the deer, right? You need to know where you hit him, and at least have a decent idea and decide if it's time to celebrate and be happy, or if you need to have reason for concern because it's not an ideal shot.
Yeah, relive the shot. Make sure you have an idea of the anatomy of a deer, whether you hit liver, which a lot of people think they hit lungs and they hit liver, so it's something that happens a lot. You hit one lung, double lung, heart, what you think. Maybe you hit shoulder, maybe you hit high above the lungs. These are things you got to think about as you relive where the shot actually encountered or hit the deer, right? And then you text your buddies and you let them know, hey, I shot something, shot looks pretty good. It's an ideal situation is what we're going for here, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is fun. We like having fun, like shooting deer, right? So there's some serious stuff that we have to worry about, but there's also some fun stuff too, so that's good. One of the serious things that you need to take seriously is giving the deer time, okay? If you see the deer fall down dead, that's cool, but anytime a deer runs off, even if it's a good shot, I have a little bit of anxiety, and I know that you need to give that deer some time, all right? So 30 minutes is kind of the standard that has been set out there by guys for a really long time. It works pretty good, right? If a deer is hit lethally, at least in what is considered vitals like heart and lungs, the deer will most likely expire within 30 minutes. That's really a great amount of time for you to be able to kind of slowly get down out of the tree, take your stuff down, but you need to be quiet the whole time because you don't know how far away that deer is and if it has expired yet.
Yeah, and you want to take your time before you start breaking your set down because there are nerves that are going nuts. You don't want to be slipping off of some tree stand or a stick or whatever on your way down and just injuring yourself, right? So give yourself time to calm down after the moment because you want to hop out of the tree, right? You want to get out quick because you're just like, your nerves are shot. Yeah, you're just so much stuff going on, right? Calm down, text some buddies, that kind of thing, whatever you need to do. Like
wife, call your wife.
You know.
Don't forget about the wife.
Yeah, she may or may not care really.
That's right.
But
she loves you.
That's what you want to do before you start breaking down your set, and then break down your set. And at this point, you've given yourself a good chunk of time. I actually lean more towards more time for the deer, especially most of the time in the fall. You have decent temps. You know, if it gets hot, you got to kind of get after it sometimes. But anyway, so you want to go and get your game card or your pack, your knives, your lights, water, headlamp, that whole thing. We're actually going to show you what all is in our pack here in just a second, but you want to make sure and get that and then you head back out.
So this is our version of a kill kit. If you're going to take this stuff out on your back, then you're probably going to want like a frame pack or something with some sort of frame in it. But if you're going to be taking it out on a game cart like we ideally like to do, then a soft pack like this is okay. We're going to show you what all is in here. The first thing I think about is making sure you got an extra knife, not just one knife, but an extra one or some extra blades that go with a replaceable blade knife like this.
Replaceable blades are nice because they're super sharp, but it is also nice to have a good solid bladed knife like that for getting in there, cutting apart joints and things like that.
The SBK?
Yeah, that's it. So the next thing, we're not gonna go really in particular order. This is paper towels. If you don't know, you really can't have enough, but it's good to not take up too much space in your bag, and we end up with half rolls a lot just because of the way we do things. So roll of paper towels is really important to have.
Trash bag. So a lot of times you can do a lot of things with this, but you can make this a makeshift meat bag, essentially, a meat bag. You could put a quarter in there or whatever, and you know, if you had tons of trash, you could throw it in there as well.
And then if you
want to carry one of these, it's a good idea too. This is what we call a Walmart sack or a grocery bag, depending on where you're at in the country. It might be a Costco bag, who knows? But the smaller version of a trash bag, you can put some meat in there, but it's really good for putting the trash like this, bloody paper towels and things like that in.
Yep. Put a heart in it too if you want.
I have done that a few times.
Yeah. If you're wanting to carry a gallon Ziploc, a heart goes in there really well. Also.
Or tenderloins or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Whenever you're doing a gutless method, if you're doing that, you end up with quarters a lot of times that are easy to carry, but you're still going to have tenderloins and a few other things that like don't really have a great place. Headlamps. There's one of those right there. There's another one in there somewhere. I believe here he is.
Can't have enough.
Can't have enough. It's also good to carry replaceable batteries for those guys as well. A lot of them take AAAs.
How about that?
Have double A's
They're
there, which
batteries.
also go in a lot, but that represents the batteries that you need to carry as well.
Also, we carry extra ratchet strap. There's some more stuff. We carry ratchet strap just in case you need to, you know, if your buck just happens to have like a giant rack, he might need to be extra ratcheted on there so that his rack doesn't fall off to the side off the game cart.
That is on a game cart. So
Yep.
yeah, there are two methods to this, right? Like you might have a frame pack that would replace this thing, or you might be putting this thing on a game cart like we're showing you here. These are rubber gloves. If you care to not be super messy, these are actually kind of nice because they're long. One of the reasons I don't actually wear gloves a lot because I feel like I get messy anyways, but having these that go up over your sleeves actually is real handy.
Yeah.
You should keep these in there this year.
And then you don't need as many paper towels at
That's
the end
right.
of the deal. KC uses this sometimes for a game bag. It's since he has chickens, he has some of these laying around. It's just a chicken feed sack. Another thing you can do with this is lay it out and basically put quarters on it or back straps or whatever just to keep them from getting nasty and dirty as you're working. And so it's just kind of a quick way to address that situation.
If you don't know what a game bag is, it's something that you put your quarter in to keep it clean and to keep you clean, right? So it's like a barrier between the dirt, the flies, all that stuff. And they make professional ones that's just kind of a cheap one that I have laying around because I already have the stuff. Anything else in here? Just another ratchet strap right there. And then also you have where's it at? Extra knives. Speaking of extra knives, there's one somewhere, right?
Can't have enough knives and lights and batteries pretty much.
Another extra knife, JIC. And you never know when you might have a hand from somebody else to help you do some things, and it's always good for them to have a knife as well. So that's pretty much what is in our kill kit. If you have any other ideas, put them in the comments.
So you're going to head back to the point of impact with your game cart or your meat hauling pack or whatever it may be, and go to the spot that you shot the deer. Okay, you're going to go see if you can find your arrow, see if you can find any evidence of where that deer took off. Maybe there's blood there already or hair or something, and just reassess the shot. It's always important to check your work, make sure it is a good shot, the arrow's not weird, doesn't have anything nasty on it, you know, like guts or stomach or whatever. Then at this point in time, if you have found blood, you'll be able to assess what type of blood that is. If it's a deep, dark red, it's probably liver. Maybe you should still back out, give that deer more time, okay? If it's heart, it's going to be really bright red. There's going to be a lot of it. And that deer should be a deer that you should be able to recover very soon. Lung is going to be kind of bright, and a lot of times it has bubbles in it, okay? So in that scenario, say you have a heart or a lung shot. It's really good. You found blood very quickly. You're going to leave a decent amount of stuff like your game cart and whatnot there where the point of impact was, and then start blood trailing this deer kind of light and fast with good light so that you can find the animal, because that's the goal, right?
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to go too fast. You want to make sure that you don't stumble ahead of the blood. So make sure that you're not stepping on the blood as you go, right? But if you do have a good shot that's double lung or heart, then you typically can follow that fairly fast and get to your deer. Once you get to your deer, make sure you mark. You can also mark blood if you're having trouble. If you're struggling, you know, that's something you can do. Again, ideal situation, you follow it to the buck, mark the buck on, you know, we typically use any sort of...
Be excited, we found a buck!
yeah, you got a digital map of some sorts, mark it on there. We use OnX, so we would drop a waypoint for that deer, and then you know, call your buddies, say I found it, text them, whatever.
FaceTime, baby.
Yeah,
Hey.
send
Yeah.
some, send location if you want to, and let them know, hey, I found my buck. This is where I'm at. By the way, passive way of asking if you want to come help. So make sure you do that. Then you want to take pictures and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now the work starts to happen.
That's right. And again, we said this is going to be the ideal situation. So you got your buck tagged, you have looked at his antlers, and you have decided that this deer belongs on your wall.
Ooh.
Exciting
Holy
times, right?
smokes.
So that's going to determine the way that you field dress this animal. You know, there are other options as well. We'll talk about that stuff later. But this is going to be a deer that you're going to want to save the cape off of. So whenever you go to field dress this deer, you need to be sure of a few things. You don't cut the cape really high anywhere up the back. But most importantly, right here on the sternum of the deer, you're only going to go until you meet hard stuff, right? So you're going to go and you're going to go right under the hide of that deer, and you're going to go right up to that sternum, and you're going to stop. You don't go any further because your taxidermist will be mad at you if you cut this thing too high up this direction.
Yeah, so you cut a big circle around it. This, say you're in a gutting scenario, you're gonna have to get dirty at this point. Like, that's just what it is. The sacrifice you make for a big old buck hanging on your wall and a good memory to relive every time you walk into your house, right? You also want to make sure keep the cape as dry as possible, keep dirt off of it, blood off of it as much as possible. Now it can be on there for a little bit, but if you're going to drag the deer anywhere, try to keep his horns high as you drag him so you don't hit that cape and get it dirty. And then if you're quartering this thing out, it's the same deal. You want to leave cape, but basically we're looking at doing like the gutless method at this point. So if you don't know how to do that, there are plenty of videos out there you can look into. Basically, gutless method, put the quarters into a game bag, and then you put that into your pack, and you start to make trips out from there.
If you are gutting this animal, you're going to need to decide if you are going to keep the heart, the liver, or anything else nasty inside there. I do like the heart. It's delicious. I do think I'll make use of the liver some this year too, so I'm planning on keeping some livers as well. And gallon baggies come in real handy for this. So get that stuff out, get all the other entrails out, and then what you're going to need to do is actually turn this deer over in a fairly clean location. I like to do this on tall grass if I can, or something that is out of the leaves and dirt and all that, and let that deer drain out some.
Yeah, so at this point you've drained the deer for a second, you're getting everything kind of cleaned up, you got your knives cleaned up and everything, your gloves taken off maybe, and you have to get this deer on a game cart by yourself, and he still weighs a considerable amount,
yeah,
right?
he big.
This is a shoulder mountain deer. So how do you do that? We're actually going to show you that right now.
Nice buck, Tyler.
Thanks, man.
Public land?
Yeah, and I've been after him all year.
Shoulder
man.
mount ready too.
Yeah,
huh?
he is, isn't he? Yeah. So this head actually doesn't stay on very well, so we're gonna do that, okay? Pretend like this buck has a head when we put him on the cart, okay?
You might go to jail if you cut the head off your deer, just saying.
So typically what you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and get strapped onto the cart before you do anything. Now this is a hard, rigid plastic piece right here, right? So he's not gonna sit on this game cart very well, so I'm gonna have Casey kind of hold it, but when it's an actual deer, you can pull it up, get its butt above this bottom bar right here so that he kind of sits in this whole thing, and he'll sit kind of low and back on the trailer essentially. You're gonna wanna center him up later, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of show you. You're gonna get him like that, and he's gonna kind of sit right there. So he's kind of low, he's off balance, but you got him strapped. So he's sitting there, and you're gonna go up in front of, this can be tough, guys, okay? So you might have to try it a few times. You go up in front of this hip joint so he doesn't go too far forward. And then typically, you might wanna come like back underneath. Depends, you want a longer ratchet. So it depends on how long your ratchet is, how much space you have to work with. We're gonna bring him around like this and go up under his armpit here, okay? So that way he doesn't go backwards too much, right, either. So then you get him up here, make sure you got good places where, like, once you ratchet it down, it's not gonna slip on you, okay? So you got to put it in a bind, essentially. And so we're gonna tighten him up here. Anyway, so now I got him where this one is keeping him from going forward, and this one is keeping him in this joint from going that way. Okay, he's relatively tight, right? So then you would take him and you would dump him over like that with one hand, and then you'd grab, this is why shooting bucks is good. You grab their antlers and you pull them up. So it's work them up, get him up higher so that he centers better on this thing, right? And then you can really kind of tighten him down at that point. and our handle's not locked in right now. We might need a new game cart before the season, so if you have a game cart and you want to give it to us, feel free. So now you're pretty much ready to go once he's balanced out and he's not pulling back this way too much or wanting to go forward. If he's got a big old rack like the ones KC likes to shoot, then you might have to also grab a ratchet or use part of this ratchet to keep his head, you know, attached up here so he doesn't drag down here the whole time. So you might use the handle to ratchet them all together. Any other thoughts?
A couple of times I've been able to actually just kind of interlock the rack into the handle.
Yeah.
And you can also grab the rack and handle at the same time whenever you're pulling. That way it just kind of keeps everything together. Another thing, just to kind of reiterate, you want to make sure you get that center of gravity over the axle, because if it's too far back, it's going to be pulling you back like this, hurting your arm and shoulder. If it's too far forward, you're going to be carrying too much weight.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how you put a deer on a deer cart. Deer carts are cheap and handy.
Yeah. You also, if you encounter logs and stuff like that, you want to take them both wheels over at the same time. You don't want to try to one wheel anything that's weird or anything, because if you dump this thing over, it can be real difficult to get back over.
This is the deal too, where like having a buddy, even just come help you, maybe not hunt with you, is super duper handy, because they can then grab that rear bar and just lift the deer over the thing with you. Anytime you start forcing this thing over logs and stuff, sooner or later that strap's gonna come off and the deer's gonna fall off, and it's just gonna be more frustrating.
One more quick thought on this too. Another way to do this, and I have done this before, if you're by yourself, you're having trouble getting the buck up, say he's just a big old giant slob from the northern Midwest, you can actually lay the buck out and you can take this game cart and flip it over on top of him, and then you can do all your strapping there. So you'd want to get the strap underneath that deer and drag him up to the strap, and then put the game cart on top, strap him all up, and then hopefully you're a big enough man to just deadlift that sucker up pretty much, or power clean it over, you know, turn him over, get him going.
That was hard, because that was a big old buck. But we got all the stuff on the cart now, and you need to make sure that you have all your stuff picked up, okay? That you have trash laying around, you've got a bow maybe to worry about, or whatever that you brought back in there with you.
I like to leave bow hangers in the tree on accident.
You do. Sometimes you have to go back and get those.
Yeah.
But you need to do a once-over, clean sweep with your headlamp. Make sure you got everything in your pack that you need. Walmart sacks are good to have, little G good, to keep all your trash in. You know, you're gonna have like some bloody paper towels, maybe some bloody gloves. You don't want to just shove that stuff off in your backpack. So put that in a plastic baggie and then put that in the backpack, get everything loaded up, and then it is time to grab that cart and do the hike of excitement all the way back to the truck.
Yeah, and once you get back to your truck, you're gonna have to figure out how to get this thing into the truck by yourself, so we're gonna show you that too.
Oh dude, I hurt my back on the way. I can't help you get this thing into the bed of your truck.
Sound like a camera guy we used to have.
Yeah.
The easiest way I've found to get a deer in the truck is on the game cart. Just leave him on there until you get home, because you're gonna wanna move him around once you get home too, or the processor, whatever it may be. Of course, on a deer, his legs are not gonna stick straight out, so you're gonna have a little bit easier time doing this, but you wanna make sure you have a truck whose bed is cleaned out, just like mine is, plenty of room in there. Actually, more than that would be better. We're not in mid-season form around here, but it's actually pretty easy to get a deer in a truck on a game cart, as long as your tailgate isn't too high, right? If you have a big lifted truck, that's a problem. You have some things you're compensating for, you need to address those things. So I have a standard height truck, all right? What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna pull this thing up, and you notice the rigid part of this game cart sits right there on my tailgate, and I can actually help that a little bit by parking in the right spot, making my tailgate lower. But what you're gonna do now is you're gonna come back behind this deer. You gotta be strong, lift with your legs, if you have any, unlike me. You're gonna grab that rear bar, and you're just gonna lift right there, and you have a pivot point in the front of the cart. Now you get it high enough, slide it forward, the wheels get on the truck, and you can wheel your whole deer in the truck. Now, given you'll have a little bit more effort with that, because your deer is gonna weigh 150, 200 pounds skinned, or not skinned, but field dressed. So keep that in mind. Eat a granola bar before you do that, take a drink of water, make sure you don't pull a hernia, because you don't wanna be laying on the ground next to your deer and never get him home, right?
You don't.
If it is warmer temps, or your processor that you're taking the deer to is far away, it's probably going to be imperative that you stop somewhere and find some ice to put up in the cavity of that deer. So that's going to be up in the chest cavity, inside the ribs. You're going to stuff as much ice as you can in there to get that whole carcass cooling off, all right? If your processor is close, however, you can probably make it there, or if it's, you know, below freezing, that deer will cool off pretty quick.
Yeah, if you're self-processing, a couple things you need to know are the transportation laws revolved around transporting the carcass of a deer, like from the state that you're going to, through the states you're going, or you're hunting, through the states that you're going through, and then also to the state that you're taking it to. Those are there's different rules for every state, and you got to make sure that you know that kind of stuff so that you don't have bone-in meat if that's required of you in any of these states.
Same thing goes for your taxidermist as well. Remember, we're mounting this guy. He's huge, right? So you need to determine if your processor and or your taxidermist has a 24-hour drop-off. That's kind of some homework you need to do probably before the hunt. Really good thing to kind of have in mind and know what your game plan is there.
Yeah, if you're processing on your own, you can actually, if you need some help with the butchering process, you can look at this video right here. Otherwise, you know, if the shot was not as good as you want it to be, and you're feeling like, dadgummit, you can get you a shirt, it'll make you feel better. And then also, we cover a lot of the more detailed scenarios, different scenarios in one of our podcasts, so go check that out as well.